What if the very foundations of your faith, your understanding of creation and humanity's ancient past, rest upon an incomplete truth? Imagine an ancient scripture, not merely lost to time, but systematically erased from our collective consciousness. A profound revelation whispered through millennia, then ruthlessly silenced by forces unseen, by powers determined to control the narrative. Tonight, we invite you to question everything you thought you knew. We stand at the precipice of a monumental unveiling, confronting a truth so disruptive, so utterly transformative, that powerful authorities throughout history deemed it too dangerous to exist. This isn't just about dusty scrolls. This is about a hidden chapter in the divine narrative. A cosmic secret deliberately buried from plain sight. What profound truths did it hold that demanded such a ruthless, absolute suppression? What if a pivotal, undeniable piece of the divine puzzle has been deliberately kept from you? For centuries, whispers have persisted of a book, a sacred text known as Jubilees, that rewrites the very genesis of our world. It speaks of angelic interactions, divine decrees, and a meticulously ordered universe in ways that profoundly challenge every accepted doctrine. Once revered, even considered canonical by early communities, it then vanished, pushed into the shadows, almost forgotten by mainstream history. Why was this text, brimming with incredible insights into covenants, divine calendars, and cosmic law, deemed a forbidden revelation? Why did powerful institutions go to such extraordinary lengths to ensure its disappearance from the standard scriptures, from our libraries, from our very memory? Prepare to journey with us into a conspiracy of silence to uncover the shocking reasons why the Book of Jubilees was hidden from us, when what its reemergence today means for the future of faith and knowledge. This isn't just history. This is prophecy unveiled. We delve now into the very heart of the mystery, into a text some have dared to call the Lesser Genesis, but to label the Book of Jubilees as merely lesser is to gravely misunderstand its profound scope and radical implications. This is no mere companion to the foundational biblical account. It is Genesis expanded, infused with startling details and divine insights that cast a brilliant, unnerving light on the patriarchs and the earliest chapters of human history. Imagine, for a moment, the familiar narratives of creation, of Noah and the flood, of Abraham and the covenant. Now, envision those stories infused with missing dialogues, with angelic pronouncements previously untold, with the very motives and machinations of both heaven and earth laid bare. Do you ever wonder what truly transpired in those sacred, ancient moments? Jubilees doesn't just fill in gaps. It recontextualizes everything, presenting a version of history that is both startlingly familiar and shockingly alien. It reveals that many laws and commands given to Moses on Sinai were, in fact, already known and observed by the patriarchs centuries before, passed down through a sacred lineage. This isn't just supplementary information. It fundamentally alters our understanding of the divine progression of law and prophecy. It is here, within the detailed annals of Jubilees, that we encounter a universe far more ordered, far more precise than many have ever dared to imagine. It presents a unique, divinely ordained calendar, a system unlike any other commonly known. This is a calendar of exactly 364 days, divided into precise jubilees and weeks of years. This sacred calendar, structured into exactly 52 weeks, ensures that feast days always fall on the same day of the week, year after year, establishing an unwavering, harmonious cycle. Why is such a perfectly symmetrical, unvarying calendar so conspicuously absent from mainstream religious observance today? This 364-day calendar isn't just an archaic curiosity. It's a divine blueprint for time itself, a system so perfectly calibrated. It suggests a sacred order, deliberately obscured from mainstream understanding. It meticulously structures time into grand cycles, 49-year jubilees, composed of 7 weeks of years. Each jubilee marks a significant epoch, a reset, a profound turning point in the divine plan for humanity and the earth. The entire narrative of Jubilees unfolds according to this very calendar, emphasizing its supreme importance. Think of it. A calendar that doesn't wander, that doesn't require constant adjustment or reconciliation with lunar cycles. A calendar that anchors humanity to a consistent, unchanging rhythm of divine appointment. This precision hints at a universe governed by an exactitude far beyond our comprehension. A sacred rhythm meant to guide and define human existence from the very beginning. Could it be that humanity was once privy to this perfect temporal order? And if so, what were the consequences of its abandonment? Or, more ominously, its deliberate suppression? The Book of Jubilees doesn't just present this calendar, it insists upon it as the true calendar, the one observed by the angels in heaven, the one revealed by divine instruction to Moses. This is not simply an alternative way to count days. It represents a fundamental distinction between two cosmic realities. One chaotic and subject to human manipulation, the other eternal, sacred, and divinely ordained. The insights offered by Jubilees into early history and its unique calendar are not isolated curiosities. They are foundational pillars for a much grander revelation. They challenge the very fabric of our accepted historical and spiritual timelines. The Book of Jubilees lays bare a sacred cosmology, a divine chronology that whispers of a conspiracy against true knowledge. A profound truth hidden in plain sight, waiting for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. Imagine, for a moment, the vast, silent expanse of the Judean desert. For centuries, its sun-baked cliffs held a secret, a profound cache of ancient texts that would forever rewrite our understanding of early Judaism. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in the caves of Qumran, beginning in 1947, it wasn't just an archaeological find. It was a cosmic retrieval, an unparalleled glimpse into a vibrant, ancient spiritual world. Among these fragmented scrolls, whispers of an almost forgotten book began to echo, clear and undeniable, teaching us into its mystery. What was this book? So revered that fragments of at least 15 different copies were unearthed from the Qumran caves. That's more copies than any other non-biblical text, and indeed, more than all but the most foundational books of the Hebrew Bible itself. This sheer volume speaks volumes. The quominence of Jubilees among the Qumran manuscripts is staggering, undeniably confirming its vital, perhaps even central, role in the sectarian Jewish communities who dwelled there. These were not casual readers. These were devout men and women, often associated with the Essenes, who dedicated their lives to rigorous study, strict observance, and the pursuit of divine purity and revelation. For these desert mystics, Jubilees was not merely an interesting read. It was a cornerstone of their spiritual world, a divine blueprint for understanding time, covenant, and the unfolding plan of God. Its unique solar calendar, diverging from the lunar calendar used by mainstream Judaism, was likely a key reason for its appeal among a community that sought a return to what they believed was a more righteous, original way. Its numerous copies paint a vivid picture of a thriving spiritual landscape, for this text was held in the highest esteem, revered as a foundational revelation, a direct window into the divine order. A book considered so crucial by an ancient, devout community, then seemingly vanished from the Western world for well over a millennium, while the Qumran discoveries eventually revealed the book's ancient Hebrew roots, allowing scholars to piece together its origins. For centuries, another, far more distant land had been safeguarding Jubilees in plain sight. Across continents and millennia, in the rugged highlands of East Africa, an enduring flame of ancient tradition continued to burn brightly. Untouched by the theological shifts and political upheavals that swept through the West, the Book of Jubilees, you see, remained a treasured and canonical part of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church's sacred scripture. For over 1,000 years, indeed, for well over a millennium and a half, it has been meticulously copied, read, studied, and revered in the ancient Ge'ez language. It wasn't found there, it was simply there, woven into the very fabric of their theological understanding, their liturgical calendar, and their daily spiritual practice. Jubilees shaped their view of creation, the covenant, and the timeline of salvation. It was never hidden from them. It was a foundational text. Their rich tradition preserved what the rest of the world had discarded or forgotten. This wasn't a mere academic preservation. It was a continuous, living legacy. While theologians and scholars in Europe debated its authenticity, or even its very existence as a lost apocryphal text, its teachings were profoundly shaping the faith of millions in Ethiopia. This enduring preservation is a profound testament to the book's intrinsic power and the incredible resilience of ancient traditions. In these isolated bastions, away from the changing currents of power and doctrine in the Mediterranean world, the old ways, the old texts, found refuge and continued to thrive. It's a remarkable cultural and spiritual achievement. From the sun-baked caves of Qumran, where its ancient Hebrew fragments whisper tales of a devout desert community, to the sacred libraries of Ethiopia, where its Ge'ez translation has been cherished for millennia, Jubilees emerges from the shadows not as a newly discovered artifact, but as a powerfully rediscovered truth about the history of Abrahamic faith. These twin pillars of preservation reveal not just the book's astonishing journey through time, but its undeniable significance across diverse spiritual landscapes and its profound influence on communities separated by vast distances and cultural divides. It compels us to ask, its roots run deeper, its history richer, and its message, perhaps, more vital than we ever dared to imagine, after centuries of its suppression. The Book of Jubilees reveals truths so profound, they challenge the very fabric of our understanding of time itself. What if the calendars we live by, the ones that dictate our holidays, our seasons, our very sense of history, are fundamentally flawed? What if humanity has been operating on a timetable deliberately obscured, a divine schedule waiting to be rediscovered? The Book of Jubilees unveils what it claims is God's true timetable for creation, a sacred 364-day calendar. This is not merely a different way of counting days. It is a meticulously structured year, divinely revealed to Moses on Mount Sinai, a command etched into the very covenants between God and man, like the variable lunar calendars or the slightly imperfect solar calendar we use today. This 364-day cycle is precise, immutable, and perfectly divisible. It consists of exactly 52 weeks, with each month having 30 days, punctuated by 4 intercalary days that mark the solstices and equinoxes, maintaining perfect harmony and beginning consistently on the same day of the week. Could it be that this ancient, consistent calendar holds the key to unlocking prophetic understanding? This precision is no accident. It speaks to a deeper, forgotten alignment with cosmic truth, a rhythmic pulse that mirrors the divine order of creation. The book warns of the dire consequences for those who stray from this divine blueprint, those who go astray in respect to the ordinances of the year and corrupt the order of the year. These are not mere suggestions, they are sacred commandments. It's the foundation of a true relationship with the divine. But the Book of Jubilees goes further than just the annual cycle. It organizes all of history, from creation to final judgment, into a grander framework, the weeks of years. Here, time is not linear and arbitrary, but cyclical and purposeful. History unfolds in periods of 49 years, known as a Jubilee cycle. Each of these cycles consists of 7 weeks of 7 years. At the end of each 49-year period, the 50th year marks a Jubilee, a time of freedom, restoration, and the resetting of all things. Its profound structure isn't just about agriculture or economics. It's a theological framework that unveils a hidden chronology of prophetic events. Every major covenant, every significant act of divine judgment, and every promise of restoration is meticulously placed within this overarching Jubilee timetable. It offers a panoramic view of God's interaction with humanity, mapping out eras of righteousness, periods of falling away, and the precise moments of divine intervention. Are we to believe it's mere coincidence that so much of biblical prophecy seems to align with these cyclical patterns? This hidden chronology suggests that the divine plan is unfolding with a precision we are only now beginning to comprehend, a profound revelation of God's true timetable, meticulously preserved in a text once deliberately hidden from the world. We stand now at the precipice of a revelation so profound, it threatens to redefine our understanding of creation itself. For centuries, we have been told a story, a narrative carefully curated, seemingly complete. But what if the very foundations of that story concealed truths far more ancient, far more intricate? The Book of Jubilees doesn't just add footnotes. It rewrites entire chapters, presenting a vision of divine intervention and cosmic order that was deliberately, systemically, removed from our collective consciousness. We have been denied a fuller, richer understanding of our sacred past. Consider the dawn of humanity, the very genesis of Adam. The canonical texts paint a picture of God forming man from dust, breathing life, and placing him in Eden. A beautiful, simple narrative, almost deceptively so. But was Adam merely a blank slate, isolated, left to discover the world on his own? Jubilees unveils a breathtaking detail, a secret whispered through forgotten ages. Adam was not left unaided. He received direct, divine mentorship. Here lies one of its most unsettling departures. The active, guiding hand of celestial beings in humanity's infancy. The Book of Jubilees reveals that angels, direct emissaries of the Most High, descended to earth to teach Adam. They were immediate tutors, imparting crucial knowledge for human advancement. These divine teachers instructed Adam in the profound art of writing, an astounding detail that suggests humanity was endowed with literacy from its very beginning, not millennia later. This established a sophisticated foundation for human intellect, beyond the written word. These celestial guides also taught Adam the vital skills of cultivation, the tending of the soil, the understanding of seasons. These were not slow human innovations, but divine endowments, passed down by angelic instructors. This narrative suggests an incredibly direct and intricate divine intervention in early human development. Why was this profound angelic mentorship of our first father deemed unfit for the sacred canon? What power in this knowledge of an angel tutored Adam necessitated its suppression, keeping humanity ignorant of its true, divinely assisted origins. Pause and consider. An Adam who could write, an Adam who understood agriculture, all taught by angels. This is a profound revaluation of human potential and divine intimacy from the outset. But the revelations don't stop with Adam. Jubilees takes us back further still, beyond creation, to reveal a truth about one of the most fundamental tenets of faith, the Sabbath. For centuries, the Sabbath has been largely understood as a Mosaic law, a divine commandment given to Moses on Mount Sinai. But what if its origins stretch into an antiquity so vast, so primordial, that it predates even the creation of the cosmos? Book of Jubilees shatters this limited perspective, declaring the Sabbath is not merely a human ordinance, but a cosmic decree, a universal principle. It unveils the stunning truth that the Sabbath was observed by angels in the heavens long before the creation of the world, even before time began. Imagine this: celestial beings, in their infinite service to the divine, already honored this sacred rhythm of rest and holiness. This makes the Sabbath an eternal covenant, woven into the very fabric of existence, a profound and cosmic significance far beyond any earthly law, anchoring humanity to a divine timetable. When God commanded humanity to observe the Sabbath, it was not an arbitrary new rule, but an invitation to participate in an ancient, heavenly rhythm, to align our lives with the very pulse of creation. It elevates the Sabbath from a mere day of human rest to a profound spiritual observance, a direct link between earthly existence and the eternal, angelic realm. The implications are staggering. The Sabbath isn't just a day for us, it's a reflection of the divine order, observed in the celestial courts of God before Adam ever drew breath. A truth hidden to diminish its universal power. Why would such a profound, universal truth about the Sabbath's primordial origin be systematically omitted from the texts that shape our faith, obscuring its cosmic significance? These aren't minor variations. These are seismic shifts in our understanding of divine intervention, angelic roles, and the very nature of sacred law itself. The Book of Jubilees presents a narrative both deeply familiar and utterly alien, inviting us to look beyond the surface, to question what has been withheld, and to embrace a richer, more complex tapestry of our sacred history. 8. Equally profound, equally unsettling, lie buried within these ancient, forbidden pages. The more we uncover, the clearer it becomes that the suppression of Jubilees was not an oversight, but a deliberate act to control the narrative of our origins, to limit our understanding of divine interaction, and perhaps to dictate the trajectory of our spiritual destiny. We have journeyed through hidden chronologies and unearthed forgotten narratives. Now, we confront a deeper truth. What if the very foundation of divine law, the sacred covenant itself, is far older, far more expansive than we have ever been led to believe? What if the most fundamental commandments were not new revelations, but echoes of an eternal order deliberately obscured? Conventional wisdom dictates God's law was unveiled at Sinai, a singular, monumental event. But the Book of Jubilees presents a startling, subversive truth, radically rewriting divine instruction's timeline. Long before Sinai's thunder, Jubilees asserts, patriarchs lived by a divine code, observing commandments later etched in stone. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob kept the Sabbath, an ancient rhythm woven into creation. Dietary distinctions, restrictions on blood, and certain meats were integral to their sacred daily lives. Could these be clear echoes of an eternal law existing since creation's dawn? Jubilees suggests an unyielding, unchanging divine mandate, transcending dispensations. It argues these were not new rules, but a reaffirmation of a cosmic order that always governed the righteous. This redefines our understanding of covenant. If these laws were already observed by faithful generations before Moses, what does that truly say about their origin and permanence? It speaks of a divine consistency, a universal application of God's will from the earliest moments. This theme of an eternal, foundational law deepens when we turn to the sanctity of marriage and family within the Book of Jubilees. Here, the text is uncompromising in its strictness. It lays bare the divine blueprint for lineage, for the preservation and purity of the chosen seed. Marital laws are immutable decrees from the Most High, forbidden unions. Intermarriages outside divinely designated lines are condemned with an intensity that defiles the very covenant. The narrative meticulously details the devastating consequences of such deviations for individuals and generations. For the very fabric of the covenant community, it underscores an absolute commitment to maintaining the integrity of the family unit, seeing it as the sacred cornerstone of God's plan, the vessel for divine promise. This uncompromising stance on familial purity offers a stark, unsettling contrast to many later interpretations, revealing a perspective on divine law too challenging, too absolute. For those who sought to modify the ancient path, Jubilees presents the formation of families as sacred acts bound by eternal statutes, designed to preserve the holy seed and fulfill God's timeless promise. The Book of Jubilees, in the eternal covenant, unveils a divine law that predates and transcends human history. It asserts an unyielding order, a cosmic blueprint for righteousness understood by the faithful long before Sinai. This law is not merely etched on stone, but woven into creation's very fabric, into humanity's very being. It's a testament to divine consistency that challenges our preconceptions, forcing us to confront the possibility that new commandments are, in fact, ancient echoes. Jubilees stands as a testament to a truth some desperately tried to bury: that the Most High's law is not just an ancient relic, subject to human modification, but an eternal, living covenant, binding across all time, unyielding in its demand for purity and unwavering obedience. A guide to a path long hidden, the journey through the Book of Jubilees has already shattered many preconceived notions, tailing layers of divine decree and ancient covenant. But now, we delve into the deepest shadows, to a narrative so profound, so unsettling, fundamentally redefines the very essence of evil and the eternal war for humanity's soul. Long before the flood, before the world was cleansed, the earth was ravaged not by human malice alone, but by a corruption born of the heavens themselves. The Book of Jubilees unveils, with startling clarity, the saga of the Watchers. These were not mere mythical figures, but celestial beings, angels, entrusted as guardians of the earth, yet who succumbed to a perilous desire. Entranced by the beauty of mortal women, they broke their sacred vows. In an act of unparalleled rebellion, 200 of these Watchers descended upon Mount Hermon, binding themselves by a terrible oath. They took human wives, defiling the pure lineage and sowing seeds of a forbidden union. From these illicit marriages sprung a monstrous lineage, the Nephilim, giants whose immense appetites and violence consumed the earth. But the corruption was not merely physical. The Watchers, these fallen angels, began to teach humanity forbidden knowledge. They unveiled the secrets of metallurgy, forging weapons of war and instruments of torture, accelerating mankind's descent. Taught sorcery, astrology, and the arts of adornment for deception, not beauty. These were not harmless crafts. but instruments of spiritual bondage, dragging humanity further from its divine path. The earth groaned under the weight of this iniquity. Every thought, every deed became saturated with wickedness. Violence, lust, and perversion spread like a plague, fueled by the celestial knowledge turned dark. This detailed account in Jubilees provides a far more expansive and harrowing explanation for the pre-flood world's demise than any other text. It paints a picture of a world utterly corrupted, not just by human failing, but by direct angelic intervention. God, beholding this widespread degradation, grieved deeply. The stage was set for the great flood, a cataclysm not merely to punish, but to cleanse the earth of the abominations born of this unholy union. The watchers themselves were judged, bound in the depths of the earth, their rebellion silenced, their influence seemingly eradicated. But was the slate truly wiped clean? Here, Jubilees delivers another profound revelation that extends the spiritual battle far beyond the deluge. The giants, the Nephilim, perished in the flood, but their spirits, disembodied and restless, lingered. These were the demonic spirits we know today. Jubilees reveals that 1/10 of these nefarious spirits were permitted to stay on earth, under the authority of a chilling figure, Mastema, the chief of the spirits. Mastema, Smo, whose name itself implies enmity, was given dominion. His purpose, divinely sanctioned, was to test and tempt humanity, to serve as an adversary, keeping humanity vigilant in its struggle against evil. This is a profound insight into temptation and the forces ceaselessly challenging human faith and righteousness. The spiritual battle for humanity's soul, far from ending with the flood, was merely redefined. It became an enduring cosmic struggle, played out not with giants and fallen angels openly walking the earth, but through the insidious whispers of Mastema's legions, subtly influencing, tempting, and challenging mankind through the ages. The Book of Jubilees doesn't just chronicle ancient history, it unmasks the hidden architecture of evil, revealing a carefully orchestrated spiritual war where humanity's soul is the ultimate prize. It leaves us with an undeniable truth. The battle continues, and the knowledge of its origins, so long hidden, is our most potent weapon. The very air of Second Temple Judaism crackled with tension, a crucible of belief and power. This was no serene era. It was a time of profound religious and political upheaval, a historical vortex swirling with competing loyalties and sacred obligations into this maelstrom of uncertainty. A profound need arose, a yearning for clarity, for an unblemished path back to divine origins. The established order, centered in Jerusalem, was under immense pressure. Hellenizing influences, the seductive allure of Greek culture, seeped into every corner, threatening to dilute the ancient covenant. Worse, whispers of corruption, of practices deemed impure, tainted the sanctity of the priesthood itself. This was the fertile ground from which the Book of Jubilees would ultimately sprout. It presented itself as a divine record, a profound revelation from angels, tracing creation and covenant with astonishing precision. For those seeking to preserve a pure form of Judaism, untainted by the shifting sands of contemporary compromise, Jubilees offered an authoritative, unwavering narrative. It was a beacon for groups determined to hold fast to what they believed was the true original mandate from Sinai, uncorrupted by later interpretations or human failings. But this profound revelation carried an implicit, explosive challenge. Central to Jubilees' pure vision was an unwavering adherence to a solar calendar, starkly different from the lunar calendar observed by the powerful Jerusalem priesthood. Jubilees decreed a 364-day year, perfectly divisible in 2 weeks, ensuring feast days always fell on the same day of the week, year after year, in divine harmony. This was no minor disagreement over dates. It was a foundational dispute over the very timing of God's appointed festivals, the sacred rhythm of life itself. To follow Jubilees meant rejecting the very timetable of worship set by the high priests in Jerusalem, thereby questioning their legitimacy, their spiritual authority, and ultimately, their connection to divine will. This precise calendar, coupled with its emphasis on strict adherence to the law, didn't just offer an alternative. It implicitly declared the official calendar, and thus the priestly practices tied to it, as fundamentally flawed, even impure. Can you now begin to grasp the sheer audacity, the potential for discord this hidden book represented? It didn't merely document history. It presented an alternative blueprint for holiness, sowing seeds of profound division for those who desperately sought unified religious authority. The stage was set, not just for a theological debate, but for a profound schism, waiting to be unearthed. For centuries, the Book of Jubilees lay shrouded in the desert sands, its whispers echoing only in the most secluded scholarly circles. But imagine a time, a pivotal moment in history, when this very text, so meticulously concealed from us, was not only known, but revered. Time when its ancient wisdom resonated through the nascent communities of faith, shaping their understanding of creation, covenant, and cosmic destiny. How could a book, later deemed too radical, too revealing, achieve such a profound moment of acceptance within the very foundations of what would become global religions? The truth is startling, and it rewrites much of what we thought we knew about the early centuries of Christianity. Far from being an obscure relic, the Book of Jubilees circulated among the intellectual giants of the early church, men whose theological insights continue to define orthodox doctrine even today. These were not fringe figures, but architects of Christian thought, and they encountered Jubilees not as a foreign anomaly, but as a significant work that offered crucial context to their sacred narratives. Consider Tertullian, the fiery Carthaginian apologist, a towering figure from the late 2nd and early 3rd centuries. His writings are a foundational pillar of Latin Christianity, a formidable voice shaping early theology. Within his voluminous works, we find compelling evidence of his familiarity with Jubilees. While not always directly quoting verbatim, he frequently alludes to narratives and theological concepts that find their most explicit and detailed expression within Jubilees. He speaks of the precise duration of creation, the intricate chronology of divine dispensations, and the roles of angels in ways that strongly echoed Jubilees' unique perspectives. This wasn't mere academic curiosity. It suggests a deep engagement, a tacit acknowledgement of its spiritual weight within certain influential Christian circles of his era. Then there is Epiphanius of Salamis, a vigilant bishop from the 4th century, renowned for his monumental work, the Panarion, a vast compendium meticulously documenting various heresies. In his earnest efforts to distinguish orthodoxy from error, Epiphanius often reveals a surprisingly intimate knowledge of texts that would later vanish from common sight. He discusses certain early Christian groups who, he noted, held texts like Jubilees in high esteem, even venerating them as divinely inspired. His meticulous, albeit often critical, cataloging inadvertently provides a crucial window into the widespread consideration of Jubilees among diverse early Christian communities. From the devout to those he controversially labeled as heretics, the very act of these foundational church fathers acknowledging, referring to, and sometimes even implicitly drawing upon Jubilees narratives, is profoundly significant. It shatters the illusion of its complete absence from early Christian discourse. It tells us that this ancient text, with its rich tapestry of forgotten laws and cosmic timelines, was very much alive, circulating, and considered a text of considerable spiritual value for many seeking deeper truths. If such pillars of the early church were aware of it, why did it ultimately recede into the shadows, almost erased from collective memory? But the acceptance of Jubilees extended beyond mere recognition. For certain early Christian and indeed some Jewish groups, Jubilees served a far more profound purpose. It was a bridge to a richer, more detailed account of biblical history than anything Genesis alone provided. Imagine the early believers grappling with the mysteries of creation, the intricacies of God's covenant with Abraham, or the deeper implications of the flood. Genesis, in its sublime brevity, often left profound questions lingering, tantalizingly unanswered. Have you ever wondered about the specifics of the angelic fall beyond the brief mention in Genesis, or the precise laws given to Noah before Sinai? What about the detailed account of Abraham's early life, spiritual journey before the covenant, or the exact calculations of time and events that shaped early human history, tied to a precise cosmic calendar? Genesis provides the foundational framework, but Jubilees fills in the sacred gaps, offering a vast, intricate tapestry woven with divine revelation and angelic instruction. It elucidates why certain events transpired, how the calendar of sacred festivals was established, and the precise timing of God's judgments and blessings across epochs. This wasn't just supplemental information. It was transformative. For those who embraced it, Jubilees fostered a deeper, sometimes esoteric understanding of divine plans. It laid bare a cosmic calendar, a meticulous timetable of history orchestrated by God and administered by angels. It revealed a layered reality where earthly events mirrored heavenly decrees, and human history unfolded according to a precise, preordained schedule, leading towards an ultimate fulfillment. This level of detail, this unveiled chronology of sacred history, offered a panoramic view of salvation history unlike any other text. Early communities, particularly those steeped in apocalyptic expectation and a profound desire for insight into divine mysteries, found in Jubilees a profound resonance. It offered a lens through which to view not just the past, but also the future, understanding the unfolding of God's grand design. It spoke to groups seeking not just faith, but knowledge, gnosis, a deeper, more intimate comprehension of the divine will and the hidden workings of the cosmos. For a fleeting yet significant period, Jubilees was embraced as a vital key, unlocking secrets that Genesis only hinted at, shaping the spiritual landscape of a nascent faith with its breathtaking revelations. Its moment of acceptance, however, was a double-edged sword. The very clarity, the very detail, the very esoteric insights that made it so appealing to some would ultimately contribute to its contentious future. It was a text too powerful, perhaps too revealing, for the emerging standardized doctrines. Consider the profound irony. A book known and valued by the very architects of Christian thought, yet destined to be relegated to the shadows, its wisdom concealed, its voice silenced. What forces were powerful enough to eclipse such a luminous text, pushing it from the forefront of spiritual understanding to the forgotten realms of antiquity? The answers lie in the tumultuous currents of history, and the choices that shaped the canon of sacred scripture as we know it. We've journeyed through the ancient sands, peered into the profound teachings of the Book of Jubilees. But a shadow still lingers, an unsettling question that demands our attention. Why was such a pivotal text, so rich in sacred history, deliberately veiled from us? The answer, it seems, lies not in error, but in calculated decisions by powerful hands, shaping the very fabric of religious thought. At the heart of this suppression was a deep, irreconcilable conflict: the calendar. The Book of Jubilees promotes a meticulously structured 364-day calendar, an unyielding solar year. This wasn't a minor detail, it was a cosmic blueprint, governing festivals and the rhythm of spiritual life. Yet, the Jerusalem temple establishment increasingly embraced a lunar solar calendar, later solidified by rabbinical Judaism. Can you grasp the magnitude of this discord? This was a direct challenge to religious uniformity, a schism in time itself. Accepting Jubilees meant invalidating the temple's sacred calendar, casting doubt upon all holy observances. This calendrical clash was, in essence, a struggle for ultimate authority, but the calendar was merely the tip of the iceberg. The Jubilees offered beliefs too radical, too challenging for a nascent religious establishment seeking standardization and control. It detailed extensive angelic interventions, not just as messengers, but as active participants in divine revelation. Even teaching ancient laws to Enoch and Noah long before Moses ascended Mount Sinai, this concept of a pre-Mosaic covenant, with laws observed before Sinai, could have undermined the centrality of Moses' revelation. Furthermore, Jubilees presented specific interpretations of sin, judgment, and the nature of evil that diverged from accepted orthodoxy. It spoke of watchers, fallen angels who corrupted humanity, and a divine order with different nuances. Imagine the difficulty for religious leaders attempting to consolidate power to establish a singular, undisputed doctrine. Any text offering alternative narratives, origins for sacred law, or even intermediaries to God, became a threat. The establishment sought a unified, theological framework where authority flowed seamlessly from God, through Moses, to their own interpretive tradition. Jubilees, with its angelic teachers and pre-Sinaitic revelations, introduced inconvenient complexities. It proposed a spiritual lineage that bypassed the very figures the emerging orthodoxy sought to elevate as the sole conduits of divine truth. To allow Jubilees to flourish would have endorsed a competing narrative, fracturing the nascent spiritual consensus they desperately built. Was it fear of confusion or fear of losing control? Perhaps both. The powerful hands that shaped the canon were not simply preserving sacred texts. They were defining what was sacred and what was not. They were drawing boundaries, establishing orthodoxies. In doing so, they relegated texts like Jubilees to the shadows. They concealed its profound truths, not because it was false, but perhaps because it was too true in a way that challenged their carefully constructed authority. This concealment ensured unity, but at a profound cost: the loss of a rich, alternative vision of sacred history, hidden for millennia, across the annals of time. Whispers of forgotten texts echo, remnants of a spiritual landscape deliberately reshaped. We journey now to the very thresholds of sacred history, to the pivotal moments when revered scholars and nascent religious authorities became the true architects of silence. These were not mere editorial choices, they were profound judgments that decided the fate of entire scriptures, reshaping our understanding of the divine for millennia. After the devastating destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, the Jewish people faced an existential crisis. Their spiritual heart had been ripped out. It was in this crucible of survival and redefinition that a remarkable gathering of rabbinic scholars emerged, coalescing around the town of Yavne, or Jamnia. though not a single grand council. The informal, ongoing discussions and pronouncements from Jamnia between 90 and 130 CE profoundly influenced the emerging Hebrew biblical canon. These esteemed sages sought to preserve, define, and re-establish the boundaries of their sacred texts, to solidify their identity in a world turned upside down. The criteria for inclusion were rigorous: divine inspiration, antiquity, a prophetic spirit, and critically, consistency with established Jewish law and tradition. But what became of texts like the Book of Jubilees, which dared to present an alternative calendar, detailed angelic hierarchies, and a narrative so rich in extra-biblical revelation? Its departure from the emerging consensus, its unique emphasis on precise adherence to a solar calendar dictated by angels, and its intricate expansions of Genesis and Exodus set it apart. For these revered rabbis, Jubilees, with its profound yet distinct voice, simply did not fit the mold of the unified, authoritative scripture they sought to protect and promulgate. While it wasn't destroyed, it was simply, definitively, left out. Gates of the canon closed, leaving Jubilees to drift into the shadows, a witness to a path not taken. Imagine the sheer audacity, the weight of responsibility, resting on the shoulders of those who would decide which divine words would resonate through eternity, and which would fade into obscurity as the nascent Christian faith blossomed from its Jewish roots. It too embarked on its own monumental task of canon formation. Early Christian communities inherited a vast array of Jewish sacred writings, but also generated a prolific body of new texts detailing the life of Jesus, the teachings of the apostles, and the unfolding drama of redemption. The process was protracted, contentious, and driven by the urgent need to define core doctrines, counter heresies, and forge a unified identity across a sprawling empire. Here again, the Book of Jubilees found itself at a crossroads. Its detailed adherence to Jewish law, its intricate chronology, and its profoundly Jewish worldview, though deeply spiritual, might have been perceived as a potential impediment to a new faith seeking to differentiate itself. Consider the dilemma. How much of the Old Testament tradition should remain central, and how much should be reinterpreted or superseded by the New Covenant? Jubilees, steeped in an angelic covenant with Israel and meticulous legal pronouncements, could have been viewed as too rooted in the very traditions that early Christian theology was striving to transcend or reframe. Furthermore, the early Christian Church grappled with countless apocryphal gospels and elaborate esoteric texts to maintain doctrinal purity and a unified narrative. There was a concerted effort to select texts that clearly supported the burgeoning Christocentric theology and the apostolic tradition. Jubilees, with its extensive angelic lore and detailed expansions of patriarchal narratives, might have appeared too apocryphal or too foreign to a canon being carefully curated to present a cohesive message of salvation through Christ. Its intricate, divinely revealed calendar, for instance, held little practical relevance for a community increasingly focused on the Christian liturgical year rather than the ancient Jewish festivals. Thus, in the quiet chambers of scholarly debate and theological deliberation, decisions were made. Bishops, theologians, and presbyters across the Roman world, driven by piety, politics, and profound conviction, shaped the texts that would form the New Testament and, by extension, define the Christian understanding of its sacred inheritance. Jubilees, like many other significant but ultimately excluded works, was not condemned for being false, but for not fitting the emerging narrative. for not serving the specific theological and institutional needs of a rapidly expanding church. It was deemed non-canonical, set aside, its powerful revelations allowed to recede from mainstream Christian consciousness. Were these decisions deliberate acts of suppression, or simply the natural outcome of religious evolution, of communities defining their own boundaries? Perhaps both. The architects of silence were not necessarily villains, but individuals making choices they believed were necessary for the preservation and propagation of their respective faiths. Yet, the consequence was profound. Entire streams of divine revelation, like those found within the Book of Jubilees, were meticulously excised from the foundational texts of Western civilization, and so, a sacred text of profound spiritual depth, once revered and studied, was effectively erased from common memory, its truths veiled, its voice muted by the very councils that sought to codify and preserve the divine word. This journey into the decisions of Jamnia and the early Christian councils is not merely a historical inquiry. It is a profound revelation of how our sacred narratives came to be, and what hidden treasures may still await discovery, challenging us to look beyond the accepted canon and to listen for the whispers of the past. What other truths, we must ask ourselves, lie just beyond the official decree, waiting to rewrite history once more? A profound question echoes through the ages. How could a book of such immense theological and historical significance simply vanish from the Western world, hidden in plain sight for centuries? The silence surrounding the Book of Jubilees in our traditional canons is deafening, a vacuum where a foundational narrative should have been. For over a millennium, it was indeed lost to the West, its existence barely a whisper in scholarly circles, often dismissed as a curious anomaly, a late, perhaps even unreliable text. But the story of Jubilees is not one of mere disappearance, but of miraculous, defiant survival, safeguarded by unseen hands and reawakened by an astonishing twist of fate. Far from the centers of Western scholarship, nestled within the ancient, isolated highlands of Ethiopia, a different story unfolded. Here, in a land steeped in profound spiritual tradition, the Book of Jubilees was not forgotten, was cherished, revered, and meticulously preserved. For over a millennium, from the shadowy depths of antiquity, the text of Jubilees persisted only within the isolated, sacred libraries of Ethiopia, within the venerable walls of its churches and monasteries. Generations of dedicated scribes and devout clergy safeguarded this profound text. They copied it, studied it, and held it as an integral part of their spiritual heritage. Jews, a living testament to a tradition that refused to relinquish its profound teachings. This wasn't passive preservation. It was an act of sacred guardianship, a commitment to keep a living flame burning when the rest of the world had let it extinguish. How did a book so central to ancient Jewish thought find its sole sanctuary, its enduring home, in the heart of Christian Ethiopia? It points to a deeper, shared lineage, reverence, that transcended geographical and even later religious divides, hinting at the truly universal and profound nature of its message. While the GS version is quietly endured as a sacred text in Ethiopia, Western scholars largely remained oblivious or dismissed it as a curiosity, perhaps a late Christian composition. The true Jewish origins of Jubilees remained obscured, shrouded in the mists of antiquity. But the universe, it seems, has a way of revealing its deepest secrets in the most dramatic fashion. The mid-20th century brought an upheaval to biblical scholarship. It's an event that would shatter the imposed silence and forcibly reintroduce the Book of Jubilees to a world that had forgotten it. In the desolate caves overlooking the Dead Sea, an unimaginable discovery was made: the Dead Sea Scrolls, These ancient manuscripts, hidden for nearly 2 millennia, offered a window into the spiritual world of Second Temple Judaism, the very crucible in which Jubilees was born. And among these shattered remnants of an ancient world, a truth lay, waiting, ready to explode the silence of centuries. Numerous Hebrew fragments of Jubilees were unearthed among the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran, which was not a single, isolated scrap. It was a wealth of material, confirming the book's immense popularity and authority within a significant Jewish sect from millennia ago. This wasn't merely a rediscovery, it was a dramatic re-awakening. The Qumran fragments didn't just suggest its ancient Jewish origins. They confirmed them beyond any shadow of a doubt. The discovery shattered the book's obscurity, dismantling centuries of scholarly neglect and mischaracterization. It forced the modern world, particularly Western, theological and historical scholarship, to confront its existence and its profound implications. Consider the weight of this revelation. The very language in which it was originally penned, Hebrew, was found in fragments from the land of its origin, proving it was not a late compilation, but an ancient, authoritative Jewish text. Perhaps even a sacred one for groups like the Essenes at Qumran. This was a profound vindication, a testament to the accuracy of the Ethiopian tradition that had held it sacred all along. The miraculous survival of Jubilees, first in the isolated churches of Ethiopia and then dramatically re-emerging from the desert caves of Qumran, speaks to an inherent power, a truth that defied oblivion. It tells a story of preservation, of hidden knowledge, and of a divine conspiracy that ensures certain truths cannot be truly lost. What profound secrets, what divine narratives, were so vital that they could not be suppressed, that they simply refused to be forgotten. The book that was hidden from us is now revealed, and its reemergence demands our attention, our understanding, and a radical revaluation of what we thought we knew about the ancient world and the sacred texts that shaped it. We have journeyed through the shadows, uncovering the forgotten narrative of the Book of Jubilees. Its very reemergence is not merely a historical footnote, it's a seismic event for modern faith. For generations, we have been told a singular story, offered a fixed set of sacred texts, presented as the definitive, immutable word. But what happens when a book like Jubilees resurfaces, a text revered by some, hidden by others, that challenges the very bedrock of that certainty? What does it mean for our understanding of divine revelation, of an unchanging God? When the texts we hold sacred prove to be far more fluid, far more contested in their origins than we ever imagined. The conventional wisdom has often presented biblical scripture as a static, divinely delivered package, a completed work from time immemorial. But Jubilees forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Ancient scripture was a living, evolving tradition. The very notion of a singular, universally accepted biblical canon, unblemished and unchanging, is a relatively modern construct, born from centuries of careful selection and exclusion. The existence of Jubilees, alongside other non-canonical works, paints a vibrant, often contradictory, picture of religious thought that thrived alongside what eventually became the accepted Old Testament. It demands that scholars and believers alike grapple with the profound implications of this fluidity. It compels us to ask, was the canon truly revealed, or was it, in part, constructed? Was the exclusion of texts like Jubilees an act of divine guidance, or a very human decision, driven by theological agendas, political power, and the desire for a unified narrative? The answer, unsettling as it may be, implies a far more nuanced, even negotiated, its history of what we now hold as absolute truth. This profound revaluation extends directly to our understanding of Second Temple Judaism. It's the fertile ground from which both Rabbinic Judaism and Christianity emerged. For too long, our picture of this pivotal era has been largely drawn from the very texts that survived the canonization process. This has inadvertently created a flattened, often simplistic, view of a deeply complex spiritual world. But Jubilees acts as a powerful corrective. It offers an unparalleled window into the rich tapestry of beliefs, practices, concatenating theological ideas that characterized Jewish life in the centuries leading up to the birth of Christ. We see a Judaism grappling with questions of ritual purity, calendrical observances, angelic beings, and the very nature of God's covenant, in ways that canonical texts only hint at. How much more vibrant, how much more complex was the spiritual landscape from which Christianity emerged than we were ever led to believe. Jubilees reveals a diversity of thought, a spectrum of interpretations, a debate, and a passionate debate about prophecy and the end times that enriches our comprehension of both Jewish and early Christian development exponentially. It illustrates that early Christianity did not spring from a monolithic Jewish tradition, but from a vibrant, multifaceted one. The rediscovery and serious study of Jubilees is not just an archaeological triumph, it's a theological challenge. It forces modern faith, whether Jewish or Christian, to look back at its own foundations with fresh eyes, unburdened by centuries of curated narrative. The Book of Jubilees demands more than just historical curiosity. It requires a deep, honest reckoning with the past and with our present understanding of truth. It asks us to consider if the very bedrock of our faith was shaped by choices and omissions. What revelations might still lie beneath the surface, waiting to challenge and transform everything we believe? The resurgence of Jubilees is not just the return of a text, it is the resurrection of profound questions, echoing through millennia, calling modern faith to a radical self-examination. For centuries, the Book of Jubilees lay hidden in plain sight, its narratives echoing through time, yet largely unheard by the wider world. But its disappearance from our mainstream scriptures was no accident. It was a conscious, deliberate act, a testament to an unseen hand guiding the spiritual narrative of humanity, who holds the power to decide what is sacred truth and what is deemed unworthy of our collective spiritual heritage. The very foundation of our religious understanding rests upon decisions made by a select few. These powerful figures, often motivated by theological uniformity and political stability, teased an extraordinary control over narrative, shaping belief by dictating which stories would be told and which would be irrevocably silenced. Jubilees, with its challenging chronology, its detailed accounts of angelic interaction, and its emphasis on a meticulously structured divine calendar, presented an alternative worldview. It wasn't merely a different perspective. It was a profound, deeply interwoven understanding of creation and covenant that potentially complicated or even contradicted the emerging, more streamlined narratives favored by nascent religious institutions. To include it would have been to embrace a complexity that perhaps, at the time, was deemed too disruptive, too wild, too potent for the masses. This was not about debunking falsehoods. It was about managing belief. To control the story is to control the very soul of a civilization, to sculpt its understanding of God, its place in the cosmos, and its destiny. It's a conscious decision to exclude Jubilees from mainstream canons. Highlights an almost unfathomable power dynamic, the ability to edit divine revelation itself. Consider the profound implications of this power. Every doctrine, every accepted truth, every understanding of God and humanity's place in the cosmos can be traced back to this selective curation. Jubilees offered a richer, more complex tapestry of divine interaction, a universe humming with celestial activity and precise temporal decrees. Its silencing was a calculated move to enforce uniformity, to streamline revelation into a more digestible, less challenging form, consolidating authority in the process. This was about more than just missing texts. It was about missing dimensions of understanding. Its absence has arguably led to a narrower comprehension of divine revelation, robbing generations of insights that could have deepened their faith and broadened their spiritual horizons. What has humanity truly lost by being denied access to Jubilees for so long? So we lost a profound insight into angelic interaction. For one, Jubilees paints a vivid, often startling picture of angels as active, vital participants in creation, in the giving of the law, and even in the fall of humanity. Without it, our understanding of the divine hierarchy and celestial bureaucracy is drastically impoverished. We are left with mere glimpses, rather than the intricate details of their roles, their falls, and their judgments, the stories of the Watchers, the origins of evil, the celestial tablets that recorded divine decrees. These are not minor footnotes, but foundational elements that reshape our perception of the spiritual realm. Then there is the precise divine timing, the recurring 49-year Jubilee cycle. The meticulous chronology from creation to the Exodus reveals a universe governed by divine precision, where every event unfolds according to a preordained celestial clock. Jubilees anchors biblical history within a cosmic temporal framework, revealing a meticulously ordered cosmos governed by an overarching divine calendar. Without this framework, we reduce grand epics to vague spans, losing the sense of intricate design and prophetic significance inherent in God's unfolding plan. The very concept of time itself is spiritualized, revealed as a sacred progression rather than a linear march. Furthermore, its absence has led to a shallower grasp of the deeper covenantal history of the world. Jubilees greatly expands upon these covenants, particularly those with Noah and Abraham, linking them to celestial tablets and eternal decrees. It reveals that many laws considered uniquely Mosaic were, in fact, given to earlier patriarchs, reinforcing the eternal and unchanging nature of God's commands, making the covenant with Israel not a new beginning, but a continuation of an ancient, cosmic pact. This isn't just about missing facts. It's about a diminished spiritual imagination, a truncated vision of God's engagement with humanity. Generations have been born, lived, and died without these profound insights, navigating a spiritual landscape that was deliberately pared down, simplified, and contained. Imagine a world where these revelations were never hidden. How might our theology, our ethics, our very relationship with the divine be different today? The cost is immeasurable. It's the cost of a deliberately incomplete picture. A universe made smaller, less mysterious, less awe-inspiring than it truly is. The suppression of Jubilees isn't merely an academic footnote. It is a spiritual wound, a missing piece in the sacred puzzle of our origin and destiny, leaving a void that echoes through the ages. Its deliberate exclusion serves as a stark reminder of the human element in shaping divine truth, allowing the fragile, often politically and theologically motivated, nature of canon formation. But for those who dare to seek beyond the conventional, Jubilees offers not just missing pieces, but a profound revelation, a chance to glimpse the world as it was once understood, before the hand of suppression took hold. Are we ready to embrace the fullness of this forgotten wisdom, to rebuild the bridges to a more complete understanding. The choice to see or remain blind is now ours. We stand now at a precipice, staring into the heart of what was hidden. For centuries, our understanding of sacred history has been framed by a singular, carefully curated narrative. But what if that lens, once so clear, was deliberately fractured? What if entire dimensions of divine truth were obscured, removed from our collective consciousness? The Book of Jubilees doesn't just fill in gaps. It shatters the prevailing paradigm, forcing us to reassemble the pieces of a cosmic puzzle we didn't even know was incomplete. Consider for a moment the very fabric of existence. Our traditional scriptures hint at a vast heavenly host, but Jubilees restores them to their rightful, majestic prominence. It unveils a universe teeming with celestial beings, not merely as passive messengers, but as active participants in the divine plan. Intricate in their hierarchies and profound in their responsibilities, particularly from the angels of sanctification to those appointed over the elements, Jubilees paints a detailed portrait of a cosmic bureaucracy, a meticulously ordered cosmos where every angel has a divine purpose. It reveals that certain angels, the Watchers, even descended to earth, intermingling with humanity, an act that irrevocably altered the course of human history. This isn't just a footnote, it's a foundational understanding of the spiritual forces at play, both benevolent and malevolent, that have shaped our world from its very genesis. Then there is the calendar. Have we been keeping time according to the wrong celestial rhythm? Jubilees insists upon a meticulous solar calendar of 364 days. It's a perfect fractal of sevens, governing every feast, every sacred observance, every prophecy. This contrasts sharply with the lunar-based systems that later became dominant. The adherence to this precise, unchanging solar cycle is presented not as a mere preference, but as a divine mandate, established from creation and observed in heaven itself. It suggests that our spiritual clocks have been out of sync, detaching us from the true divine timing, perhaps even from the very flow of cosmic energy intended for us. What profound spiritual benefits might we have lost simply by miscounting the days? This isn't just about dates, it's about alignment with the heavens, with God's unalterable plan, and with the very rhythm of revelation. And what of sin itself? Thus, Jubilees delves into the profound, often terrifying origins of corruption with an unflinching gaze. It elaborates on the fall of the Watchers, their forbidden unions with human women, and the birth of monstrous giants who filled the earth with violence. It clarifies that these angelic transgressors and their demonic offspring are the true progenitors of much of the evil and spiritual oppression that plagues humanity. This narrative provides a richer, more detailed account than the succinct summaries found elsewhere, offering a framework to understand the enduring struggle between good and evil and the cosmic stakes involved in our redemption. It reframes the story of creation and fall, not as a simple moral lapse, but as a titanic struggle within the very fabric of the cosmos, involving powerful celestial beings and their devastating impact on Earth. Together, these revelations invite a profound paradigm shift. Jubilees calls us back to a faith that is not merely doctrinal, but deeply mystical and cosmically aware. It's a faith that sees the universe as an active, living theater of divine will and angelic influence, where every event, every cycle, every struggle is woven into a grander, more intricate tapestry than we ever imagined. We, truly ready to embrace a God whose wisdom extends far beyond our limited earthly perspectives, into the very heart of the cosmos. This broader perspective compels us to reconsider all biblical narratives. not as static, immutable dogma, but as living, evolving accounts. Jubilees acts as a master key, unlocking deeper chambers of meaning within stories we thought we knew intimately. Abraham's journey, Noah's Ark, Moses' law, they all gain new dimensions, new resonances, when viewed through the Jubilees lens. It suggests that our sacred texts are not closed books, but rather portals to layers of truth that have been hidden, awaiting rediscovery. Imagine an ancient manuscript, parts of which have been deliberately redacted, chapters torn out, pages glued together. For centuries, we've only read the fragmented version, believing it to be complete. Jubilees is one of those torn-out chapters, a vital missing piece that, when reinserted, illuminates the entire narrative. It reveals a sacred history far more comprehensive and interconnected than the one we have been taught, hinting at a period when humanity possessed a more direct and profound understanding of the divine order. The question isn't just why it was hidden, but why it is resurfacing now. Perhaps, in our modern era, humanity grapples with unprecedented global challenges and a yearning for deeper spiritual truth. The time has come for this ancient wisdom to be reclaimed. Jubilees urges us to shed the comfortable limitations of our inherited theology and to embark on a journey of profound revaluation. It is a clarion call to expand our understanding of God, of angels, of sin, and of our own place in this magnificent, often terrifying, cosmic drama. The Book of Jubilees stands as an undeniable testament to a hidden past, a suppressed truth, that now demands to be heard. It challenges us not just to believe, but to reframe, to reevaluate, to rediscover the astonishing depth of our own spiritual heritage. For centuries, a veil has been drawn over certain sacred texts, intentionally obscuring profound truths from the masses. But what if the answers you seek, the missing pieces of divine history, lie just beyond that veil, patiently waiting for you to simply reach out? Are we truly prepared to question the foundations of what we've always been taught, to look beyond the official narratives that shaped our world? The journey into the Book of Jubilees is more than an academic pursuit. 'Tis an invitation to a sacred rebellion, a rebellion against accepted ignorance, a rebellion for profound enlightenment. Its forbidden text dares you to question established narratives, to peer behind the carefully constructed curtain of history, to look beyond the official story that has been handed down through generations. It compels you to embark on your own unwavering quest for deeper spiritual understanding. It's because the truth, often whispered as myth and systematically dismissed, is frequently hidden in plain sight, encoded within ancient manuscripts, waiting for those brave enough to recognize and unseal its power. This ancient testament, systematically suppressed by those who feared its revelations, holds profound keys to a different understanding of divine chronology, of the true nature of angels, and of the very blueprint of creation itself. Do not simply take our word as gospel. We implore you, read the Book of Jubilees for yourself. Immerse your spirit in its profound, world-altering revelations. Share its astonishing insights with others. Engage in courageous discussions that challenge conventional wisdom, that provoke deep thought, and that shatter long-held preconceptions. For in seeking these forgotten truths, in daring to unearth what was intentionally buried for millennia, we do not merely rediscover an old book. We awaken to a fuller, richer, and far more accurate understanding of divine history, of the intricate tapestry of creation, and most crucially, of our true, profound, and often forgotten place within it all. Questioning acceptance is over. The moment for profound revelation, for personal discovery, and for reclaiming our spiritual inheritance is now. Unsealed the ancient mysteries,